I am making a Magician Pendulum deck profile. I played this deck recently at my locals, and I didn't think I did too badly with it. I managed to beat Virtual World, and what was the other one? I think it was Zombie. I don't remember. But I really like this deck just because how controlling it can be, and then obviously anyone who knows me well knows I don't play a Pendulum deck without Zarc, so a controlled deck that then summons a really big dragon for no reason. I like it. So starting off with the monsters, I play for level 3s, I play 1 copy of Timebreaker Magician and 2 copies of Time Gazer. If I could play the ratios I wanted, I play the 1 Time Gazer and the 3 Timebreaker. Time Gazer really does nothing for this deck, but Timebreaker has the effect of, the only effect I actually care about is, besides being a level 3, is that you can target one monster your opponent controls, banish both it and Timebreaker until your next standby phase. Then I play 3 copies of Harmonizing Magician. Harmonizing has the effect of when it's pendulum summoned, you can summon 1 Magician Pendulum monster from your deck with a different name or other than Harmonizing. However, it's banished when it leaves the field. If you use it for a Synchro, Fusion, or XZ summon, the other material must be a Magician Pendulum monster, and it cannot be Pendulum summoned from the extra deck. And its pendulum effect is all monsters you control gain 100 attack for each face-up Magician in your extra deck with a different name. But typically we're going to be pendulum summoning it, so it having that effect doesn't really matter too much. Then I play 3 copies of Purple Poison Magician. Purple Poison has the pendulum effect of when or during the damage step, you can have an attacking or when a dark spellcaster battles, you can have that dark spellcaster gain 1200 attack points and then it self-destructs. And its monster effect is when this card you control is destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can then target 1 card in your opponent's field and destroy it. So I like it because it can be a great offensive or defensive card. Then I played 3 copies of Double Iris Magician. Double Iris has the effect once per turn you can target 1 dark spellcaster, and give it the ability of if that monster deals damage by battling a monster, it deals double battle damage, and then it still destructs. And then its monster effect, when it is destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can add 1 Pendulum Graph from your deck to your hand. And I forgot to mention it, but Purple Poison also has the effect it's always treated as a Fusion Dragon. And then Double Iris has the effect it's always treated as a Pendulum Dragon. Then I play 3 copies of Wisdom Eye Magician. Wisdom Eye is only in this deck for its pendulum effect, and it also being a level 4 Magician. If you have a Magician or Performer Pal card in your other Pendulum Zone, you can destroy it, and if you do, take a Magician Pendulum monster from your deck and place it in your and activate in your Pendulum Scale. Then I play 2 copies of White Wing Magician. White Wing Magician just says your opponent once per turn when your opponent activates a card effect that targets a Magician Pendulum you control, you can negate that activation and then it destroy itself. And then it just has the effect of if this Pendulum Summon card is used for a Synchro Summon, banish it. And its name is always treated as a Synchro Dragon. Then I play 3 copies of Black Fang Magician. Black Fang has the pendulum effect. If you can target 1 monster your opponent controls, have its attacked and it destroys itself. And its monster effect is if this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target 1 dark spellcaster in your graveyard and special summon it. And it's always treated as an Xyz dragon. Then I play 2 copies of Performer Pal Skulker Rat Joker. I never scale this card because its normal summon effect is too important to me. Being when it's normal summon, you can add 1 Performer Pal, Odd Eyes, or Magician Pendulum monster from your deck to your hand. Then I play 3 copies of Supreme King Dragon Darkworm. And Dark Worm's Pendulum effect is never used because you want magicians in your pendulum scale unless you're desperate. But it also has the effect of this card. As normal or special summon, you can add one Supreme King Gate monster from your deck to your hand. So discard fodder. Or and if it also has the effect of if you control no monsters, you can special summon it from your graveyard. You can use each effect of Supreme King Dragon Dark Worm once per turn. Play 3 copies of Chronograph Sorcerer. It has the Pendulum effect if you can destroy it to then take a Time Gazer Magician from your deck and either place it in your Pendulum scale or summon it as a monster. Then it also has the effect of a monster, if a card or cards on your field destroy a battle or opponent's card effect, then you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, you can summon one other monster as well. But the effect I really like is its effect of you can banish this card along with a Fusion Dragon, Synchro Dragon, Xyz Dragon, and Pendulum Dragon to special summon or Fusion Summon Supreme King Zarc. And that's why I play the 2 White Wing, otherwise I wouldn't be playing White Wing at all. Then I play 3 copies of Oath Dragon Magician. I like this card at 3 just because it's too easy to target for your opponent when they're using cards like Cosmic Cyclone. And it's also the best full scale on the deck of having the pendulum effect of if you have a magician in your other pendulum zone, then you can target one face up pendulum magician in your extra deck and add it to your hand. I don't actually know what its monster effect does because I've always had it in the scale and never summoned it. But its monster effect is if this card is normal or special summoned, you can target one magician, pendulum monster, or odd eyes monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. So yeah, that's not a very good effect for me personally, but I can see it having its uses at times. Then to finish off the monsters, I play the 1 copy of Supreme King Gate 0. Its only relevant effect in this deck is that you take no damage while you control Zarc. And the 1 copy of Supreme King Dragon Odd Eyes. I only ever summon this in this deck off of either Supreme King Zarc's effect or the effect of another trap later on in the deck. But I feel like this deck would be a whole lot better if Konami would would just release Supreme King Dragon Starving Venom from the ban list. Anyway, and then play 1 copy of Star Pendulum Graph. This has the effect of your opponent cannot target spellcaster monsters you control with spell cards or their effects. And if a face-up magician pendulum monster card or cards leaves your monster zone or pendulum zone, you can add 1 magician pendulum monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use each of that effect once per turn. Then I play 2 copies of Dragon Shrine. As you send a dragon from your deck to the graveyard, and if you send a normal dragon, you can send a second one. Then I play 2 copies of Duelist Alliance. If you have a card in your pendulum zone, you can add 1 card from your deck that lists pendulum in its name. So you can search any pendulum graph, or because of how Double Iris has in its text always has a pendulum dragon, you can also search Double Iris. Then moving on to the only 3 spell in the deck is 3 copies of Pendulum Call. Discard a card. Add 2 Magician Pendulum monsters from your deck to your hand with different names. You can't activate its effect if a Magician Pendulum has activated its effect in the Pendulum scale. And until the end of the next turn, Magician cards in your Pendulum zones cannot be destroyed by opponent's card effects. And that is it for the spells. Moving on to the traps, I play the 1 copy of Supreme Rage and 3 copies of Time Pendulum Graph. Supreme Rage can only be activated while you control Supreme King Zarc, but once activated, you destroy as many monsters you control as possible, minimum 1. And if you do, special summon as many Supreme King Dragon monsters from your hand, deck, graveyard, and extra deck as possible. And then you can banish from your graveyard, take 2 Supreme King Dragon Dark Worms from your hand, field, or graveyard and attach them to a Supreme King Xyz monster you control as material. Then Time Pendulum Graph has the effect your opponent cannot target spellcaster type monsters you control with trap cards or their effects. And then once per turn, during either player's turn, you can target one Magician Pendulum monster in your monster zone or spell or pendulum scale. And one card your opponent controls, destroy both. But if it wasn't able to destroy 2 cards, then send one card your opponent controls to the graveyard. This card is probably one of the most important cards for this deck, especially when going first. That is it for the main deck. Moving on to the extra deck. This is a lot of dragons and spellcasters, but I like how it is. I play the 1 copy of Raider's Knight. It's just a rank 4 that lets you summon a really big dragon for no apparent reason. Or I say a potentially really big dragon. Then I play 2 copies of Time Star Magician. Time Star has a soft once per turn, being able to use 1 material. Just add a dark spellcaster from your deck to your hand. And then if a pendulum card or cards on your field be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can send 1 Magician Pendulum card from your deck to the graveyard instead. And that means that if your opponent Regekis you while you have like a pendulum monster, like say Supreme King Dragon Odd Eyes in play, you can send something like Double Iris from the deck to the grave to save it. Or what I like to do, if your opponent would destroy Supreme King Zarc in battle, you can send Magician to save Zarc from being destroyed if it was battling with a 4,000 attack monster. It is funny. Play the 1 copy of Supreme King Dragon Dark Rebellion. Dark Rebellion has the effect if it battles an opponent's monster, you can use material. That monster's attack points are reduced to 0, and then Dark Rebellion gains attack equal to that monster's original attack until the end of the damage step. Or I think it's the end of the battle phase. Either way, it smacks really hard. Then I play with 1 copy of Performage Trapeze Magician. This card's great because I ran into a random Trickstar player. Ooh boy, were they angry when I made Trapeze Magician. They couldn't burn me for 200 repeatedly. Then, but it also has the effect you can use material, target 1 monster you control. It gets 2 attacks during the battle phase this turn, but destroy it during the end of the battle phase. Then I play 1 copy of Magician of Hope. Magician of Hope is another way to summon Supreme King Dragon Odd Eyes in this deck. You can use 1 material, especially on level 7 or higher Magician Pendulum. Is it 7 or lower? I don't remember. Yep, use a material, summon a level 7 or lower Magician. Level 7 or lower Pendulum monster from your hand. I'm honestly going to take this out for a Abyss Dweller. It doesn't really do any good in this deck. Other than just dying so that I can search for another Magician from the deck with Time Star or Time Pendulum Graph. Then the potentially really big dragon I play is Arc Rebellion Xyz Dragon. Arc Rebellion's only ever summoned off of Raider's Knight using material to summon an Xyz Dragon that's 1 rank higher. But I can also summon a Raid Raptor or Phantom Knight that's 1 rank higher. But I prefer to summon Arc Rebellion off of its effect. Arc Rebellion has the effect of if it has an Xyz monster material. It cannot, the Xyz summoned card cannot be destroyed by card effects. And it also has the effect of you can use 1 material to then have it negate the effects of all their monsters in play, gain the attack points of all their monsters in play. However, it's the only one allowed to attack. And it can only negate the effects of your opponent's monsters with its effect if it has an Xyz monster as material. But I have won many games with this coming out just because of how your opponent doesn't expect to be punched with a monster that's at least 10,000 attack points. So I managed to win games because of this. Then I play the 1 copy of Wind Pegasus Agnister. I'm only playing this because of what I can use this to make in this deck, which I actually found to be really funny to do. But if you don't want to play this or the level 10 Synchro that's in this deck, you can just take it out for other cards like Abyss Dweller or Tornado Dragon. Or even any Link monsters you want. Then I play 1 copy of Supreme King Dragon Clearwing. Clearwing has the effect when it's Synchro summoned. You can destroy all face. Then once per turn before damage calculation, if it battles an opponent's monster, you can destroy the other monster. If you do inflict damage to your opponent equal to that destroyed monster's original attack. Then play the 1 copy of Ignister Prominence, the Blasting Draco Slayer. The only effect this has in your deck is you destroy a pendulum monster in play from anywhere on the field or pendulum scales, and then return. I am butchering this card's effect. It targets 1 pendulum monster in play, 1 pendulum card to destroy, and then shuffles back a monster opponent controls. Then I play 1 copy of Chaos Ruler, the Chaotic Magical Dragon. I'm testing this out because when I found this actually makes summoning Zarc a bit easier. Where when it's summoned, you excavate the top 5 cards and add 1 dark monster from excavated dark from your deck to your hand. And then send the rest to the graveyard. The only reason I say dark is because this deck doesn't play light, so its resurrection effect doesn't really matter. Then, because it's all dark, I play 1 copy of Beals, the Diabolic Dragons, just for when you need a really big dragon shield. Then I play 1 copy of Nirvana High Paladin. Nirvana High Paladin can be summoned by using a summoned pendulum monster as a tuner. So that's why I would want to play 3 copies of Timebreaker Magician with the... Basically, you pendulum summon... what's it called? Harmonizing, and then a Timebreaker. Harmonizing summons a second Timebreaker. You summon Wind Pegasus and you summon this. And because it's summoned using a pendulum tuner monster, which the Timebreaker was treated as, so you can take 1 spell card from your graveyard, add to your hand, and if it destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can then have your opponent's life points. Then I play 2 copies of Supreme King Zarc. Zarc is one of the dumbest cards that I like to play, being that it cannot be special summoned except by being fusion summoned. When it's fusion summoned, it destroys all cards your opponent controls. It cannot be targeted or destroyed by opponent's card effects. And if it destroys a monster in battle, you can start summoning a Supreme King Dragon monster from your hand, deck, extra deck, or graveyard. And then once destroyed, it goes in your pendulum zone. And its pendulum effect is really funny when your opponent's playing a deck revolving around fusion, synchro, Xyz, or pendulum. Or not pendulum. But its pendulum effect negates the effects of your opponent's fusion, synchro, or Xyz monsters. But that's it for my Magician deck profile. If you have any ideas of what I can do to improve the deck, any decks you'd like to see face each other, or any other decks you'd like to see me build, feel free to comment those below. Thanks for watching.